You were not born to be invisible. You were not created to exist quietly in the background, silencing your needs, dimming your light, or filtering your truth to make others comfortable. That version of you, the one who tolerates too much, swallows their voice and hides behind politeness, is not your final form. It's a temporary version, a shell you built to survive a world that once made you feel too much, too loud, too different. But now it's suffocating you. It's stealing your time, your energy, your power. And you feel it. That quiet ache, that deep knowing. Something inside you wants more. Not more attention, not more validation, but more truth. More freedom, more self-respect. And the only way to have it is to let go of who you've been pretending to be. You've spent years walking on eggshells, overthinking every word, rehearsing every response just to keep the peace. You've apologized for things that weren't your fault. You've said yes when your whole body was screaming no. You've smiled through pain, nodded through disrespect, and waited for someone to finally see you. But they never will. Not while you keep hiding behind nice. Because nice is not the same as kind. Nice is performative. It's scripted. It's a defense mechanism. Kindness comes from truth. Nice comes from fear. And fear will keep you small. Fear will keep you silent. Fear will make you disappear in your own life. But there's another way. A way where you stop asking for permission to exist fully. A way where you don't need to be liked to feel worthy. You become rooted in your values, clear in your voice, and unapologetic in your boundaries. You speak not to please but to express. You act not to be accepted but to be honest. And something powerful happens when you stop betraying yourself to keep others happy. You begin to attract what's real. Real respect, real connection, real peace. Because when you show up as your full self, you give others permission to do the same. You were never too much. You were just too real for a world that celebrates comfort over courage. But your courage is exactly what's needed now. The courage to say no without guilt. The courage to walk away from people who only stay when you're convenient. The courage to stand in rooms without shrinking. That kind of courage doesn't make you hard, it makes you whole. And wholeness is louder than niceness will ever be. Because it radiates from within. It's unshakable. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to protect your energy. You're allowed to choose yourself, even when it disappoints others. Especially then. Because every time you choose yourself, you send a message to the world. I matter. My needs matter. My boundaries are not optional. This is how transformation begins. Not with the approval of others, but with the decision to finally honor yourself. The real you. The strong you. The free you. The version that's been waiting all along. Choosing yourself is not a betrayal. It's a return to the core of who you are, before the guilt, before the pressure, before the world told you that your worth was measured by how much you could tolerate. You do not exist to carry the weight of everyone else's comfort while your own needs go ignored. That is not love, that is not compassion, that is self-erasure. And every time you silence yourself to keep the peace, a part of you vanishes, your voice fades, your presence weakens, until one day, you wake up in a life you didn't choose, surrounded by expectations you never agreed to. That's the cost of being the nice person. You don't just lose time, you lose yourself. You are not meant to please everyone. That's a battle you can't win. No matter how much you give, it will never be enough for those who are only here to take. No matter how agreeable you are, someone will still criticize. And no matter how kind you are, someone will still misunderstand you. The goal was never to be perfect in their eyes. The goal is to be honest in your own. To know that you showed up for yourself. To know that you spoke the truth, stood your ground, and honored your needs, even if it made others uncomfortable. Growth isn't polite, healing isn't quiet. Becoming who you were meant to be will offend the ones who benefited from your silence. The fear of being disliked is a chain. It keeps you small, compliant, predictable. But your freedom lives on the other side of that fear, because once you stop needing approval, you become untouchable. You stop chasing validation. You stop editing your personality just to be accepted. And you start moving with clarity, confidence, and peace. That's real power. The power that doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't chase, it simply is. And when you own that power, the right people will find you. The ones who see you, hear you, respect you, not for what you do for them, but for who you are, without the mask. There is nothing wrong with being kind, but there is everything wrong with losing your voice, your identity, your soul, in the name of keeping everyone else happy. That is not kindness. That is abandonment of yourself. You deserve more than that. You deserve a life where your boundaries are honored, your needs are met, and your presence is valued. But that starts with you, not them. You must be the one to decide. No more shrinking. No more apologizing for your truth. No more prioritizing peace for others at the cost of chaos within yourself. This is your turning point. Not when you get louder, but when you get clearer. Not when you get mean, but when you get honest. Not when you stop caring, but when you start caring about the right things. About yourself. About your peace. About your worth. Because once you fully accept that, you never go back. The moment you stop waiting for permission is the moment everything begins to shift. No one is going to hand you your power. No one is going to show up and tell you it's okay to put yourself first. That's a decision you make, a line you draw, a standard you set. And it starts with refusing to be available to everything and everyone. Your time is not free. Your energy is not infinite. Your soul is not for rent. The more you allow yourself to be pulled in every direction, the further you drift from your purpose. That quiet resentment building inside you is not a flaw. It's a signal that you've been giving too much, compromising too often, and living too small. That feeling isn't wrong. It's the truth trying to reach you through the noise of people-pleasing and perfectionism. The fear of being seen as selfish has robbed too many people of their destiny. But being selfish isn't about hurting others. It's about healing yourself. It's about choosing what aligns with your values instead of what earns temporary approval. You don't owe anyone access to you just because they expect it. You don't have to answer every message. You don't have to attend every gathering. You don't have to say yes when your soul is screaming no. Real confidence isn't loud. It's quiet. It's firm. It's knowing that you don't need to prove your goodness by sacrificing your well-being. You already are enough, without the overexertion, without the overgiving, without the emotional acrobatics. You've spent so long managing how others feel about you that you forgot how you feel about yourself, and that disconnect becomes unbearable. It's why you feel burned out, frustrated, empty. Not because you're broken, but because you're pouring from a cup that's been empty for years. That's not compassion. That's neglect. And every time you override your own needs, you teach yourself that everyone else matters more, that your peace can wait, that your dreams can come second. But they can't. Not anymore. Not if you want to feel alive again. Not if you want to breathe without guilt, speak without fear, and walk without apology. You don't need to become someone else to earn love. You don't need to shrink to be accepted. You don't need to stay quiet to be respected. You only need to be who you are, without the filters, without the fear. The people who truly value you will never ask you to betray yourself for their comfort, and the people who do were never meant to stay. Let them go. Let their expectations fall away. Let your voice rise above the noise. Because your life doesn't begin when others finally approve. It begins when you finally approve. When you decide to show up as your whole self, unfiltered, unafraid, and unwilling to settle for anything less than what you deserve. That is not rebellion. That is freedom. And it's yours the moment you claim it. You don't rise by being agreeable. You rise by being aligned. Aligned with your truth, your values, your purpose. You rise when your yes actually means yes, and your no carries weight. You rise when you stop performing kindness and start embodying self-respect. The world doesn't need more versions of who it wants you to be. It needs the version of you that is unshaken, undiluted, and unwilling to abandon yourself just to keep everyone else comfortable. When you show up like that, rooted, clear, whole, you no longer bend to fit into places you've outgrown. You create space that matches your worth. The more you abandon yourself to keep others happy, the more you confirm a lie that has lived too long inside you, that your needs are too much, that your presence should be small, that your voice is an inconvenience. But you were not made to live in fragments. You were not made to be the emotional caretaker for people who refuse to carry their own weight. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to disappoint others in the name of not disappointing yourself. You are allowed to outgrow the version of you that survived by staying silent. That version was needed once, but now it's only keeping you from becoming who you're meant to be. Being honest will cost you. It will cost you relationships rooted in convenience. It will cost you the approval of people who only stayed because you made things easy for them. It will cost you the illusion of peace that came from suppressing your own voice. But what you gain is immeasurable. You gain energy. You gain clarity. You gain the power to move forward without constantly second-guessing your worth. That's the exchange. You lose the fake, and you gain the real. And yes, it's hard, but it's necessary. Because the longer you play small, the more the world reflects smallness back at you. You were not born to be passive. You were not born to be agreeable at the cost of your power. You were born to be whole, and wholeness means choosing what's hard in the short term to protect what's right in the long term. It means saying no and meaning it. It means facing discomfort instead of running from it. It means being okay with being misunderstood. Because peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the presence of truth. And truth, when lived fully, rearranges everything around you. It repels what's fake. It attracts what's real. But it only happens when you stop performing and start choosing. Your power is not in your ability to be liked. It's in your ability to live in full alignment with who you are, without apology, without hesitation, without waiting for someone else to finally validate what you already know. You are not here to be nice. You are here to be real. And real is rare. Real is brave. Real is free. Be that. You are not responsible for how others react to your truth. You are responsible for delivering it with clarity, with integrity, and without apology. Stop shrinking to protect other people's comfort zones. Stop editing your soul to make your presence easier to digest. The people who belong in your life won't ask you to dim your light so they can shine. They won't flinch at your boundaries. They won't withdraw when you speak with conviction. They will recognize your strength because they've done the work to find their own. The rest were never meant to stay. Release them. Stop carrying the emotional weight of people who were never willing to carry yours. That burden is not yours anymore. Every time you silence your intuition to avoid conflict, you reinforce the belief that your needs are a problem, that your voice is dangerous, that your truth is too heavy. But silence does not equal peace. It is a slow erosion of self, and eventually, it catches up in the form of resentment, fatigue, disconnection. You cannot continue to abandon your own soul and expect to feel whole. You cannot numb your voice and expect to feel seen. The cost of suppressing who you are is far greater than the cost of being misunderstood. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to over-explain. You only need to stand firm in the knowing that your worth is not up for negotiation. There is nothing virtuous about being constantly available, constantly agreeable, constantly accommodating. That's not goodness. It's a loss of identity. You are not a resource to be accessed at will. You are not a solution to everyone else's chaos. You are a human being, and your presence is sacred. Your energy has value. Start acting like it. Respecting yourself isn't arrogance. It's alignment. It's reclaiming what you gave away in exchange for approval that never satisfied you. It's stepping out of roles you were never meant to play. The peacemaker, the fixer, the one who always says yes. Those roles kept you small. Now you are done performing. Let discomfort be your teacher. Let it sharpen you. Let it call you higher. Because growth is never easy. But neither is staying stuck in a life where your boundaries are ignored, your emotions suppressed, and your voice silenced. You were not born to live that way. You were born to lead yourself. You were born to move with depth, intention, and truth. You don't need to fight to be seen. You need to stop hiding. You need to stop filtering. You need to stop making excuses for people who benefit from your silence. You don't owe anyone the version of you that kept their world easy. You owe yourself the version that finally puts your needs first. That version is not cruel. That version is not selfish. That version is free. And when you step into it fully, you don't just change your life, you reclaim it completely, authentically, permanently. You don't need to be chosen to be worthy. You don't need to be needed to matter. The need to be everything for everyone is a distraction from becoming everything for yourself. You've confused love with sacrifice for too long. You've worn exhaustion like a badge, hoping that being everything for everyone would finally make you enough. But you were enough before you ever gave anything. Before you ever bent. Before you ever broke your own back to keep someone else standing. You don't have to prove your value by how much you endure. Pain is not a prerequisite for love. Self-abandonment is not a requirement for connection. The right relationships don't ask you to disappear. You've been conditioned to believe that being nice is the same as being good, that keeping the peace is always the noble choice. But peace at the expense of your truth is not peace. It's a cage. It's a quiet, suffocating prison that convinces you to smile while your soul screams. You've been taught to minimize your needs, to over-explain your boundaries, to justify your discomfort just to be accepted. But you don't need to be accepted by people who only value you when you're convenient. You need to be accepted by yourself, fully, fiercely, without negotiation. You will never be too much for the people who are right for you. You will never need to shrink for the spaces that are meant for you. But you have to be willing to let go of what was built on your silence. You have to stop defending what drains you. You have to stop normalizing what breaks you. The version of you that kept tolerating, compromising, apologizing, served a purpose once. It helped you survive. But now, that version is suffocating the one trying to emerge. The one who is done explaining. The one who is done being soft in all the wrong places. The one who is done being liked more than respected. You weren't made to be neutral. You weren't made to be passive. You were made to take up space. You were made to speak with weight. You were made to say no and not flinch. You were made to move like your presence matters. Because it does. The moment you start living from that place, everything around you changes. The wrong people fall away. The right ones rise up. Your world stops being heavy. Your choices stop being filtered. You stop looking for permission to be who you already are. And in that moment, you're not just free. You're whole. You are not a placeholder in your own life. You are not background noise in someone else's story. You are not here to serve everyone else while starving your soul. You are here to rise, fully, boldly, without apology. This is not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the strength you buried to survive. Now you're done surviving. Now it's time to live as if your voice was never a burden. Because it never was. There is nothing noble about disappearing to make others feel more comfortable. You were not sent here to be palatable. You were not born to be manageable. You were meant to be real. The kind of real that disrupts false peace. The kind of real that doesn't flinch when its presence is too loud for insecure ears. The world has enough people who water themselves down to fit in. What it needs is someone willing to show up as they are, speak what they feel, and no longer apologize for existing in full color. You are that someone, and the longer you wait, the more you delay your own becoming. You can be kind and still walk away. You can be compassionate and still say no. You can be full of love and still refuse to be disrespected. The idea that goodness means endless tolerance is a lie that's been passed down like a rulebook, used to control you through guilt. But guilt is not a compass. It is a reaction, often triggered when you break patterns that never served you. Let it come, let it pass. Because what you're building is greater than the comfort of others. You're building integrity, you're building wholeness. You're building a life that reflects who you are, not who you had to become to survive. There is no freedom in being the person everyone depends on but no one shows up for. There is no joy in being praised for your generosity while silently drowning in burnout. You've learned to anticipate needs before they're spoken. You've learned to absorb tension, so others don't have to feel discomfort. And while that made you needed, it also made you invisible. You became the reliable one, the easy one, the one no one checks on because they assume you're always okay. But inside, you're not okay. And you shouldn't have to collapse just to be seen. You are not here to be the emotional safety net for people who would never do the same for you. You are not obligated to carry what others refuse to manage. Their disappointment is not your responsibility. Their expectations are not your prison. You do not owe anyone a version of you that costs your peace. You owe yourself the freedom to choose your own well-being. And that choice does not make you selfish. It makes you strong. It makes you honest. It makes you whole. The moment you stop trading your silence for temporary harmony, you begin to build a life rooted in truth. And truth, though uncomfortable, will always lead you home. This is not about burning bridges. It's about refusing to keep walking across the ones that always collapse beneath you. Let others misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them judge. They will. And it does not matter. What matters is that you are finally standing in your own name, owning your space, breathing in your power. That is what you came here to do. And now nothing will stop you. The moment you decide to stop abandoning yourself, you reclaim everything that was stolen by your silence. Every time you said yes when you meant no. Every time you smiled to hide the discomfort. Every time you held back your truth to protect someone else's feelings. You gave away a piece of your power, not because you were weak, but because you were taught to believe that being liked was safer than being real. That compliance was love. That disappearing was the only way to belong. But the cost of being liked at the expense of your authenticity is a life that doesn't feel like your own. And no amount of praise or acceptance can fill the emptiness left behind when you betray yourself. You were not made to bend endlessly. You were made to rise unapologetically. There is strength in stillness, but there is greater strength in refusing to remain silent. You're not difficult for having needs. You're not mean for enforcing boundaries. You're not selfish for choosing peace over people-pleasing. These are not flaws. They are signs of growth, indicators that you've outgrown the version of you that was molded by fear, guilt, and the need to be everything for everyone. You're allowed to evolve. You're allowed to disappoint the people who only love the watered-down version of you. You're allowed to change the rules mid-game when you realize the ones you've been playing by were never yours to begin with. When you finally decide to put yourself first, expect resistance. From others, from within. It will feel uncomfortable, unnatural, like you're doing something wrong. But that's not a sign to stop. It's proof that you're breaking cycles. You're reprogramming years of conditioning, rewriting beliefs that taught you love had to be earned through sacrifice. You're unlearning the idea that being needed is the same as being valued. It's not. Being used is not the same as being seen. Being available is not the same as being respected. Real love honors your boundaries. Real respect accepts your no. Real connection does not require your self-betrayal. You do not need to be passive to be peaceful. You do not need to be agreeable to be kind. You do not need to be soft where it hurts you. You can be gentle and firm, compassionate and clear, loving and immovable. These are not opposites. These are integrations, the full spectrum of your power. And once you step into that fullness, you stop being the one who adjusts. You stop being the one who makes excuses. You stop being the one who overextends just to feel worthy. You start choosing you, not just in moments of crisis, but in every ordinary decision where your soul deserves a voice. This is the standard now. No more shrinking. No more over-explaining. No more guilt for putting yourself at the center of your own life. You are not selfish for protecting your energy. You are not wrong for finally showing up as you are. You are free. And freedom looks good on you. There comes a point when protecting your peace becomes more important than proving your worth. When your energy is too valuable to waste on trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding you. When your growth demands that you no longer entertain relationships that require you to explain your boundaries, defend your truth, or beg for respect. You are not here to be tolerated. You are not here to be useful at the expense of your soul. You are here to be whole. And wholeness means choosing yourself even when others call it selfish. It means staying rooted in your values even when it costs you connection. Because any relationship that depends on your silence to survive was never love. It was control dressed in comfort. You are no longer available for one-sided loyalty. No longer available to soothe egos while your spirit starves. No longer available to play small so others don't feel insecure around your strength. If your light makes them uncomfortable, let them look away. You weren't made to dim just to be accepted by those still hiding from their own brilliance. Let them call you cold. Let them call you distant. What they're really saying is you're no longer controllable, that you've learned to protect your power, that you've stopped seeking validation in places that only ever offered you temporary approval and permanent exhaustion. The truth is, not everyone will celebrate your healing. Some only loved you when you were easier to manipulate, when your boundaries were non-existent, when your self-worth was low enough to be shaped by their opinions. But you're not that version anymore. You've outgrown the need to be chosen. You've outgrown the need to be constantly available. You've outgrown the belief that love must come at the cost of your identity, and that's what real evolution looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet clarity that says, I will not abandon myself again. You've done enough bending, enough overreaching, enough shrinking. Now it's time to expand. Not in arrogance, but in truth. Not in reaction, but in alignment. You're allowed to be direct. You're allowed to say no and mean it. You're allowed to not explain every decision just to make others feel more comfortable with your growth. This isn't rebellion, it's maturity. It's the quiet power that comes from finally seeing yourself clearly, from choosing peace over people, from building a life that doesn't ask you to dilute your truth in order to fit in. Every time you honor your own boundaries, you teach the world how to treat you. Every time you choose rest over obligation, you reclaim your power. Every time you walk away from what no longer serves you, you step deeper into freedom, the kind of freedom that doesn't need applause. The kind that comes from within. Steady, quiet, unshakable. You no longer need to be the nice person. You just need to be the true one. That version of you is unstoppable. That version of you is home. You are allowed to redefine what strength looks like. It doesn't have to be silence. It doesn't have to be endurance. It doesn't have to be holding everything together while falling apart inside. Real strength is choosing yourself when it would be easier to disappear. It's standing firm in your truth, even when it shakes your voice. It's walking away from what feels familiar but no longer fits the person you're becoming. You don't need to carry the identity of the nice person any longer. You don't need to keep living in patterns that leave you empty just to earn love that should never have been conditional. What you need now is honesty, with yourself, with the people around you, with the life you keep pretending is fine when everything inside you knows it's not. Nice is not always kind. Nice is often quiet compliance. It's the smile that hides exhaustion, the nod that avoids conflict, the agreement that comes from fear, not alignment. And each time you choose it, you reinforce a lie that says your comfort doesn't matter, that your feelings are too much, that your presence should be soft enough to never cause a ripple. But you were not made to blend in. You were not made to bend to the expectations of people who never learned how to handle authenticity. You were made to show up fully, loudly if needed, unapologetically, always. You don't have to be liked by everyone. That's not the goal. That was never the goal. The real goal is to be known by yourself, fully known, to make choices from alignment instead of guilt, To say yes when your heart is open, and no when your energy says stop. To be led by your values, not by the fear of judgment. You were taught to believe that love must come through sacrifice. But the love that asks you to sacrifice your voice is not love, it's control. The love that asks you to give endlessly while receiving nothing is not love, it's dependency. The love that only stays when you're pleasing is not love, it's performance. Let it fall away. What remains after you release the roles you were never meant to play is truth, and truth will feel raw at first. It will feel unnatural if you've spent a lifetime pretending. But truth is the only foundation strong enough to build a life that actually belongs to you. One where your boundaries are clear, one where your needs are heard, one where your presence is not a performance, but a reflection of your deepest self. That is the life you are worthy of. Not because you've earned it, but because you exist, and your existence is enough. You don't need to try harder to be good. You need to stop trying to be small. You need to stop living for approval, and start living in alignment. This is your permission. To take up space, to be seen, to be clear, to be whole, not nice. Whole. Wholeness begins when you stop needing to be everything for everyone, and start being everything for yourself. You are not here to meet expectations that drain you. You are not here to fulfill roles that silence you. You are not here to be predictable, pleasant, or passive. You are here to be real, to be honest, to be fully, completely, unapologetically yourself. And that version of you does not exist to be nice. That version exists to live in truth. Because niceness without boundaries is not kindness. It's self-erasure, and you have spent enough of your life disappearing to be liked. That ends now. You are not selfish for putting your needs first. You are not wrong for wanting space, rest, clarity. You do not need to justify your decisions to people who only hear you when you agree with them. You do not need to explain your boundaries to those who never respected them in the first place. It is not your job to be constantly available. It is not your job to fix what others refuse to face. Your job is to stay aligned with your values, to move with intention, to protect your energy like your life depends on it, because it does. You cannot create anything meaningful if you are constantly depleted. You cannot love deeply if you are constantly on empty. You cannot serve your purpose if you are constantly putting yourself last. There is power in your no. There is peace in your distance. There is freedom in your refusal to tolerate what no longer reflects your worth. Growth is uncomfortable. It asks you to disappoint people who benefited from your silence. It asks you to set boundaries that others will push against. It asks you to become someone who is no longer willing to make themselves smaller just to be accepted. Let the discomfort come. Let it strip away the layers that never belonged to you. Because underneath the fear, underneath the guilt, underneath the pressure to be good, there is something stronger waiting to be claimed. Your self-respect. You do not owe softness to those who misuse your kindness. You do not owe access to those who drain your spirit. You do not owe explanations for your healing. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your peace with everything you have. This is not cold. This is not cruel. This is what it looks like to finally honor yourself. To finally say, I matter too, not later, not when it's convenient. Now. There is nothing more powerful than someone who has stopped begging to be chosen and started choosing themselves. There is nothing more magnetic than someone who knows their worth and no longer compromises it for temporary connection. Be that person. Be the one who no longer plays small. Be the one who finally understands that love doesn't require you to vanish. It requires you to be whole. Be whole, be true, be free. You no longer need to explain why you're changing. You don't need to soften the truth just to make others comfortable with your evolution. You're not here to live the same day over and over, repeating patterns that shrink you, maintaining relationships that deplete you, or performing a version of yourself that keeps the peace but steals your joy. The people who loved the version of you that was always available, always agreeable, always quiet, they will struggle with your boundaries. Let them. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your healing is. And healing demands change. It demands honesty. It demands that you stop apologizing for becoming who you really are. You've learned that being needed isn't the same as being loved. You've learned that constant self-sacrifice doesn't lead to deeper connection. It leads to quiet resentment. You've learned that when you say yes out of guilt, you abandon your truth. And when you do that enough times, you forget what your truth even sounds like. That's the danger of being too nice. You lose yourself in everyone else. You become so focused on not upsetting others that you start to believe your needs are the problem. But they're not. Your needs are sacred. Your needs are valid. Your needs are not negotiable anymore. The greatest act of courage is choosing to honor yourself even when others don't understand. It's standing tall in rooms where you used to shrink. It's speaking clearly when you used to hesitate. It's staying grounded when guilt tries to pull you back into the role of caretaker, fixer, emotional sponge. You don't owe your emotional labor to anyone who feels entitled to your energy but has never earned your presence. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed. That's exactly the point. You've changed because you had to. Because staying the same was slowly killing your spirit. You are allowed to protect your peace like your life depends on it. You are allowed to disconnect from chaos, even if it wears the mask of family, friendship, or loyalty. Loyalty means nothing if it keeps you in pain. Love means nothing if it costs your self-respect. You are not required to carry what is breaking you just because you used to. You can love people from a distance. You can care without overextending. You can walk away without guilt. That is not weakness. It's wisdom. You are stepping into a new reality now. One where your voice matters. One where your time is respected. One where your heart is not an open door to anyone who wants to walk in and take. This is your homecoming. The return to your own strength, to your own clarity, to your own truth. You don't need permission to protect your energy. You don't need validation to set yourself free. You just need to decide that your well-being is worth more than someone else's comfort. And it is, always. This is the moment you choose power over approval. This is where you stop chasing peace that only exists when you stay silent. You've played that role long enough. The agreeable one, the helper, the one who always says, it's okay, even when it's not. That version of you was built on survival. It kept the chaos out, kept people around, kept everything looking fine from the outside. But inside, you were disappearing, quietly, slowly, completely. And now that ends, because you're not here to be liked. You're here to be free, and freedom demands truth. Even if your voice shakes, even if they leave, even if it changes everything. Your voice is not too much. Your truth is not a burden. Your feelings are not wrong. They are signals, reminders, warnings. And when you ignore them, you pay in silence, in stress, in self-betrayal. You don't have to carry that anymore. You don't have to hold the weight of everyone else's expectations while your own needs collect dust in the background. You don't have to be everything for everyone, especially when it means becoming nothing to yourself. You get to matter too. You get to speak. You get to protect your time, your energy, your heart. That is not rudeness. That is responsibility, the kind you owe to yourself. There will always be people who want access to the version of you that never says no. Let them go. Let them be uncomfortable. You are not their comfort zone. You are not their solution. You are not their emotional landfill. The ones who truly care won't punish your growth. They'll rise with you or respectfully step aside. Either way, it's clarity, and clarity is freedom. You are not losing people. You are losing roles, scripts, cycles, the kind that kept you running in circles, pleasing, fixing, performing, apologizing. Let that go. You deserve real connection, the kind that doesn't require you to dim your light, the kind that celebrates your voice, even when it challenges, even when it says no. You deserve a life that doesn't feel like a performance, a life where you can show up without a mask, without a filter, without the weight of pretending. But that life doesn't come from being nice. It comes from being honest. It comes from walking away when your values are ignored. It comes from saying, this no is final, and meaning it, even if it costs you something temporary to gain everything permanent. You are not becoming harder. You are becoming clear. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming self-aware. You are not changing into someone else. You are returning to the version of you that stopped bending. The version that knows your voice has value. Your time has limits. Your boundaries are law. This is not rebellion. This is your rebirth, and no one has the power to stop it but you. There's nothing wrong with expecting more respect, more depth, more honesty, more alignment. You've spent too long settling for crumbs of connection, calling it loyalty. You've tolerated half-hearted effort, dismissive tones, conditional support, just to avoid being labeled difficult. But difficult is often just a word used by people who can't benefit from your silence anymore. And you're not here to be easy. You're here to be whole. The version of you that stayed quiet to keep things calm doesn't need to lead anymore. That version kept you safe. This version will set you free. You were never too much. You were just too honest for people addicted to convenience. You were just too aware to stay in cycles where your energy was currency, traded away for validation that never truly arrived. You can't keep being the emotional shelter for others while you're left standing in the storm alone. You can't keep saying yes to things that make your chest tighten and your spirit shrink. Your body feels the truth long before your voice finds the courage to speak it. Listen to it. It's telling you what your mind has been conditioned to ignore. That discomfort you keep brushing aside is the price you've been paying to avoid being misunderstood. But being misunderstood is not worse than being unseen. It is not your job to manage how others perceive your healing. You are not responsible for their reactions. You are responsible for your reality. And your reality improves the moment you stop over-explaining your worth to those committed to undervaluing it. You don't need another conversation. You don't need another apology. You need boundaries backed by action. You need space that protects your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Your energy is sacred. Your time is sacred. Your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. And anyone who treats it as disposable has no place in your future. This is how you rise, not with noise but with clarity. Not by demanding attention, but by refusing to settle. The nice version of you did what it had to do. But now, you choose what's true. You choose what's real. You choose what feels right in your body, even if it looks wrong to others. That is self-trust. That is power. That is ownership of a life that finally reflects your worth, not just in words, but in boundaries, in decisions, in the company you keep. You're not here to be consumed. You're not here to be molded into what's most convenient for others. You're here to be seen for who you are, and respected as you are, without performance, without sacrifice, without apology. The more you choose yourself, the more your life begins to reflect that choice. People may leave, patterns may break, but peace will come, truth will come, freedom will come. And once it does, there's no version of you that will ever go back to being just nice. You don't need to be available to everyone just because you were before. You don't need to explain why your energy no longer flows in places that drained you. Growth doesn't always come with announcements. Sometimes it's a quiet shift in your spirit, a deeper knowing that being nice was never the same as being true. You're not closing off, you're choosing wisely. You're not angry, you're aware. You're not bitter, you're done bleeding for those who never even brought you a bandage. And in this awareness you become powerful. Because you stop looking outward for permission. You stop needing people to understand decisions they were never meant to approve. You begin living for alignment, not acceptance. You are allowed to require more than surface-level connection. You are allowed to outgrow spaces that used to feel like home. You are allowed to no longer recognize yourself in relationships where you had to mute your voice just to be loved. The mask was never love, it was performance, and you wore it so well, for so long, that even you started to believe it. But that part of you was a survival tactic, not a reflection of your worth. You're not here to survive anymore. You're here to thrive. You're here to take up space, speak with weight, and walk in full ownership of your truth. That's not cold, that's clarity. Stop waiting for others to change so you can finally feel safe being who you are. Stop handing over the keys to your peace. You've seen what happens when you give people power over your sense of self. It breaks you, not all at once, but slowly, in small compromises, in quiet betrayals, in moments when you felt the sting of disrespect and swallowed it down just to keep things smooth. But smooth doesn't mean safe. Smooth doesn't mean whole. It just means silenced. And that silence has robbed you long enough. You don't need to be rude to be real. You don't need to be cruel to be clear. You don't need to be hard to be strong. Strength is the ability to love without losing yourself, to give without being emptied, to walk away without guilt when the situation no longer honors your worth. That kind of strength takes work. It takes self-awareness. It takes the courage to stop choosing comfort over consciousness. You have that courage now. You've earned it. You've built it in the quiet moments no one saw, when you were done being everything for everyone and started becoming everything for yourself. This is your reclamation, your reset, the breaking of patterns disguised as personality. You're not difficult. You're discerning. You're not distant. You're deliberate. You're not too much. You're finally in your fullness. Let that be enough. Let that be more than enough. You didn't come this far to return to who you had to be. You came this far to rise into who you really are. Keep rising. Keep choosing you. Keep walking in truth, even when it's heavy, especially when it's heavy.